Thank you for choosing our story. If you enjoy this one, don't forget to check out other stories on our channel. From princes and princesses to fairies and detective tales, each story is packed with beautiful lessons about friendship, family, and morals. Now, let's dive into today's exciting story, We Don't Want a Reward. Written by Mukhtar Ahmad, this story is a treasure trove of valuable lessons. All rights reserved. We don't want a reward. From early morning, Mr. Shakir was busy cleaning and tidying up his car. By now, it was nearly noon. His 3 children, Aaqib, Fahad, and Hania, were also lending a hand, while his wife Nesreen was occupied in the kitchen preparing food. Occasionally, she peeked out the window to check on them. The family was set to embark on a long journey early the next morning. The children's school vacations had just started, and Mr. Shakir had planned to take them to visit their ancestral home, a small and prosperous town called Chahiay, located approximately 250 kilometers away. As soon as the plan was finalized, Mr. Shakir informed all their relatives in Chahiay via mobile phone about their upcoming visit. This news brought joy not only to the children's grandparents, but also to the rest of the extended family. Mr. Shakir, his wife Nesreen, and their children were known for their polite and considerate nature, which is why all their relatives loved them dearly. The announcement of the trip filled the children with excitement, as it had been a long time since they last met their grandparents and cousins. They eagerly began preparing for the journey. Mr. Shakir had also taken a week's leave from work for this purpose, and cleaning the car was part of these preparations. Before long, the car underwent a complete transformation and was sparkling clean. Pleased with the results, Mr. Shakir smiled warmly and said, "Even if no one else praises it, I will. Look how great the car looks now." Then, as if remembering something, he added, "There's just one more task left. Yesterday, one of the tires got punctured on my way back from the office. I replaced it with the spare tire in the trunk. I'll get the punctured tire fixed this evening." "Dad, can I come with you to get the tire fixed?" asked Fahad, the youngest son. Mr. Shakir opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, Nesreen called out from the kitchen window to inform everyone that lunch was ready. They all washed up and gathered around the dining table. Despite feeling tired from the morning's efforts, Mr. Shakir helped Nesreen pack the travel essentials. Nesreen filled one large bag with items for herself and Mr. Shakir and another with gifts for their relatives. Meanwhile, the children were busy preparing their belongings, deciding which clothes and shoes to take. They also set aside some money from their pocket allowances, thinking it might come in handy during their outings. Exhausted from the day's work, Mr. Shakir had an early dinner and went to bed. The next morning, everyone was up before sunrise. As the sun rose, the family set off on their journey. Nesreen had informed the neighbors that they would be away for a week and requested them to keep an eye on the house. Although summer had begun, the weather was pleasant, as dark clouds loomed in the sky. The children were thrilled to see the clouds, but Mr. Shakir felt uneasy, worried that rain could disrupt their trip. Noticing his concern, Nesreen asked, "What's the matter? You seem suddenly worried. Is everything okay?" Mr. Shakir replied anxiously, "Everything is fine, but these clouds are making me uneasy. If it starts raining during the journey, we might face trouble. With the kids here, I'm worried about what might happen if the car breaks down." "God willing, nothing like that will happen," Nesreen reassured him. "Besides, the journey isn't too long, just 3 or 4 hours. And with the new roads, it's much easier now. Remember how bad the roads used to be before?" Mr. Shakir didn't respond but started the car once everyone was seated. Aaqib and Fahad began watching cartoons on their mobile phones, with Aaqib sitting in the front seat and Fahad in the back with Hania and Nesreen. Hania, who hadn't slept well due to the early start, lay down with her head in Nesreen's lap and soon drifted off to sleep. The trip was going smoothly. They had covered about 100 kilometers when a loud bang startled everyone. Nesreen's heart skipped a beat, and she began reciting prayers. She clutched Hania tightly to her. Aaqib and Fahad, however, were unfazed, realizing that the car's tire had burst. Mr. Shakir skillfully controlled the car, which had started swerving, and brought it to a stop on the roadside. As he stepped out of the car, Aaqib and Fahad followed. Mr. Shakir headed toward the trunk to get the spare tire but suddenly froze. He remembered that he had forgotten to get the punctured tire fixed the previous evening. Feeling dizzy, he leaned against the car's roof, overwhelmed with regret. Seeing his state, Nesreen quickly stepped out of the car and rushed to his side, asking, "What happened? Do you need water?" With a faint smile, Mr. Shakir replied, "I feel worse than Aaqib and Fahad. You always advise them not to delay tasks, and they've become responsible because of it. But I haven't changed a bit." Nesreen was puzzled. "What are you talking about? Tell me clearly what's going on." "What can I say?" sighed Mr. Shakir. "Yesterday, when the tire got punctured, I planned to get it fixed at the shop near our house. But I completely forgot. My carelessness has put us in such a difficult situation. We're too far to go back, and with these ominous clouds and this deserted area, it's all the more concerning. I've even heard about robberies around here. What will the children think of their irresponsible father when they find out?" Just then, Aaqib and Fahad came running from the back of the car. Aaqib exclaimed, "Dad! Dad! We have something to show you. You'll be amazed when you see it." Nesreen was deeply annoyed by Aaqib's unnecessary interference in such a serious situation. She angrily said, "Aaqib, have some shame. We're in trouble, and you're busy with your nonsense. Do you even realize what has happened to us?" "Yes, Mom. Our car tire has been punctured," Aaqib replied respectfully, bowing his head. "Even then, you're in the mood to play?" Nesreen snapped, genuinely worried. "Mom, you've misunderstood. We wanted to show Dad something that would make him jump with joy," Aaqib explained again. Fahad, who was standing nearby, was smiling. Nesreen noticed Fahad's smile, which made her even more upset. "You two have become so mischievous. You're still just kids, and while your parents are distressed, you're finding this situation amusing," she said, exasperated. Hearing Nesreen's words, Fahad, who had only been smiling, burst into laughter. This behavior angered Mr. Shakir as well. "Fahad, what kind of behavior is this? Have you gone mad?" he yelled furiously. Fahad, frightened by Mr. Shakir's outburst, stood silently with his head lowered. Mr. Shakir soon realized that he had overreacted and shouldn't have shouted at Fahad. Softening his tone, he said, "Fahad, my boy, you don't understand how worried we are. We're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and our car's tire is punctured. Because of my negligence, I couldn't get the damaged tire repaired in time. That's exactly what we've been trying to tell you, Dad. We had the puncture fixed last night." Aaqib quickly stepped forward and said, "What are you saying?" Mr. Shakir asked, looking at him in disbelief. "Yes, Dad, it's true. Last night, you went to bed early, even though you'd said you'd get the tire repaired in the evening. So, Fahad and I quietly opened the trunk, took out the tire, and rolled it to the corner shop to get it fixed. Since you were asleep, we thought we'd tell you in the morning, but we forgot," Aaqib explained. Hearing this, Mr. Shakir first smiled, then laughed, and finally burst into such loud laughter that Hania, who had been sleeping in the car, woke up startled and peered out of the window. Nesreen stood there, stunned. For a few moments, she couldn't process what had happened. But when she finally understood, she wrapped one arm around Aaqib's neck and the other around Fahad's, saying warmly, "Thank you, kids. You've saved your mom and dad from a big problem. Let's go home, your reward is guaranteed." Aaqib replied, "Sorry, Mom. We don't want a reward. The happiness you and Dad felt because of our effort is the biggest and most precious reward for us." Hearing this, Mr. Shakir felt a strange sense of pride in his heart. He was delighted to see how good and responsible his children had become, thanks to the excellent upbringing at home and school. When children do something good, only their parents can truly understand the immense happiness it brings, along with heartfelt prayers for their kids. In no time, the tire was replaced, and the family happily resumed their journey toward their destination.